Hello, this is Joel again. This is October 17th, 2021, and I'm just doing another video. It won't be very long. I know the last few videos have been, or the last two videos have been kind of long, and uh, I don't think anybody's watched the second video, and that's okay. They'll just go out there into the internet world and they'll float around until someone finds them, if they ever find them. But anyways, what we want to talk about today, Jimmy and I were just talking about different things. And one of the things that I thought was interesting to talk about, and I'm sure a lot of people have opinions about this, especially with the whole thing about global warming and, the what they call it, ecological crisis or whatever it is. To be honest, up front, I believe a lot of that is just political. But what we want to talk about is along those lines, I guess from a Christian perspective. And so I want to start with something that I think is going to probably offend a lot of people. It might kind of throw a wrench into your works of religion and how God works or how God speaks to people. But years ago, when Avatar came out, my friend Jimmy and I went to see the movie. Actually, now let me backtrack. I went to see the movie, and when I was there watching the movie, I mean, I enjoyed it. It was science fiction, which is what I like. I like science fiction and everything. Uh, I got a lot out of it, more than just the movie, the science fiction story. There was something about it that I thought was interesting that I was getting from it. So what I did is I asked Jimmy to come watch it, and I don't even remember if he wanted to watch it or not. He might have not even been interested in it that much, but I said, hey, just come over and we'll go watch it again. And I'm not going to tell you what I got from it, but I just want to see what you think while you're watching it, if you get the same thing I was getting. So he did. We went and watched it again. And sure enough, halfway through the movie, he turned to me and kind of looked at me. This is like, and he was acting like, yeah, something's going on here. So afterwards, what we talked about is that the movie is actually showing a lot about how God created the world. Now, and this is just a movie, of course, there's another planet and whatever. But we felt like it was showing a lot of truths. And God has a way of using whatever He wants to communicate with us. And He can use movies, even secular movies. They don't have to be Christian movies. And one of the things that we felt, we both, and like I said, I just asked him to see what he thought of the movie. And we arrived to the same conclusion is that in the movie, I don't know if you've seen it, but basically, they had these native people that lived in this planet, and Earth has come to mine a special kind of mineral that is very, very valuable. So they are willing to destroy a lot of this area to mine it. And of course, the natives don't want that to happen, and they are fighting back. Of course, they are not advanced. They use bow and arrows and spears and things like that. But one of the things they show in the movie from the beginning is that they were very connected to the land, to the creation. And not only that, but in the movie, they could literally connect directly with the animals. Like they would connect to the animals, they could connect to the plants. I mean, to the grass, they could make a direct connection. And of course, that doesn't happen here, but what I felt like was God was showing us is that that's what God created. The world was that way when Adam was created. We were all connected. Adam was connected to the world, to the land, to the animals. There was a special connection. It didn't have to be a physical connection, but it could be, there was a spiritual connection of some sort. Now, the Bible talks about that, the land groans for the return of the children of God and to be revealed. And it's in pain and it's in strife and it's in decay. And when God is manifested, then they're going to go back to the way they originally created. And I think one thing we have missed, and as Christians, is to think that if you think of the earth as something that we need to take care of, that we're connected to, which a lot of Native Americans, that's the way they look at it, uh, that somehow that's wrong because New Age uses that and other cultures use that, other religions, and understand that. But here's the thing, Satan is not creative. He doesn't create anything. He doesn't come up with anything new. What Satan does is he takes what God does and he uses it for his own purposes, and he just perverts it. He destroys it. So what he's done is he's used this connection because the connection is real. So when people start talk about in the New Age about taking care of the land, taking care of the trees, taking care of the ocean, taking care of the environment, well, there's a real connection there because that is true. God wants us to be stewards of the land, stewards of creation. He set up Adam and it was like, this is all yours to take care of. He made him to take care of the world, to be a steward to the world. A steward doesn't destroy his master's property, he takes care of it. He makes sure that it's taken care of, watered, people fed, things taken care of, maintenance done, whatever needs to be done, so that it continues to grow and be taken care of. Well, apparently a lot of people have decided that, well, we don't have to do that because, it doesn't matter. That's what the New Age thinks, but the New Age is bad, is they got it all wrong. Well, no, because even Jesus talks about how the Pharisees would take truth and then just put a little bit of their own lie or their own deception into the mix, and then it spreads over the whole thing. But they didn't mean that the rest of that meal was bad. It just was made mad because you added a little bit of lie in there. But the rest was true. So they use truth and then they twist it just a little bit and then they make it bad. So I think that's what's happened with a lot of these things. We have allowed the world to come in and say, well, we need to take care of the environment. And then we suddenly turn away from it because we think that, oh, if you think that the environment is important, then you're worshiping the environment. Well, no. I mean, you're supposed to take care of your children. Does that mean you worship your children? You're supposed to take care of your family. Doesn't mean you worship your family. Now, some people might, but in general, we know that we need to take care of things. We need to protect the environment. And I'm not talking about extreme things where now the environment is more important than people, because that's what's going on. A lot of people are trying to say, we need to get rid of people, reduce the population, or people are not important, the animals are important, the trees are important. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about us as believers. We need to understand that there is truth in that aspect of taking care of the world, taking care of the environment. But that doesn't mean that people need to suffer for it. Now, one thing about that is this. When the enemy comes into an area and they take over, and he takes over the area, and he's in control of the area, what happens is nature begins to decay and it begins to react against that because that's not what nature wants. And I know this sounds crazy, but it is what it is, and you can find verses that support that. The land begins to dry up, rivers begin to get polluted, dried up. And even back in ancient days when you didn't have all the industry, that was happening. The land was cursed, so it didn't produce like it would normally produce. It didn't. The environment, the weather was bad. There were droughts. There were, excessive rains or whatever. Too much cold, too much heat. All that stuff was happening. But then when God would come in and people would turn to the Lord, then God would bless the land, and the land began to produce in abundance. And it was blessed because God was the one, now that people were turning to the Lord, so his Holy Spirit would come and things began to change for the positive. So if you really think in those terms, I would say that if you want to protect the environment as a Christian, the way to do it is to get out there and preach the gospel to people so people can turn to the Lord. And as people turn to the Lord, that in turn is going to bless their environment. I know it sounds kind of crazy and simplistic, but it's really true. You know, as people turn to the Lord, God's gonna bless them. God is gonna bless not only like their area where they work. You know, Joseph, God was with him, so he went to work for Potiphar as a slave, and guess what? God blessed Potiphar because he put him in charge. He realized that Joseph was very good at administering things. He was a good steward, so he put him in charge, and God blessed his household. Then he got accused falsely, ended up in jail for something he didn't do. And you would think that, well, they imprisoned him for the wrong thing. It's a false accusation, and now he's in jail. So why would God want to bless the jailers? Well, guess what? Because Joseph was there, God blessed him. God blessed the jailer. The guy who was in charge of jails. God blessed him. He helped him organize things. Stored the place, basically. He just blessed them. So that is another way in which God can bless the people just by turning to Him. And I think that happens with nature and the environment and animals. That's the way God does things. What do you think?
I think you're nailing it on the head.
So I think that we really need to stop giving Satan what he wants, which is for us to turn away for certain things because we think, well, the enemy is using this, and so that must be bad. Well, no, there are things that the enemy uses that he's just taken God's truth and twisted it for his own purposes. So you don't just go ahead and say, well, that's not something we need to be concerned with as Christians. Christians, we need to be concerned with the environment in the right way. Not in some extreme way where we're trying to say that people are not important or people's lives are not important at all. That's not what, because the world was made for us. I mean, ultimately, the world was made for Adam and his descendants, which is us. But also, he wanted us to take care of this world that he gave us. Now, a lot of the problems with the world come through sin, because sin introduced decay into the world, into the physical world, and we're all decaying. Everything is decaying. Everything is going down, and the only way for that to be reversed and changed is through the power of God, which comes through His church, through the power of His salvation. Because when He begins to bless us, everything gets blessed. When God is in a place, things begin to happen because that's just what happens when God is around. You know, when the ark was taken by the Philistines and taken to some town, and then when they had it there, things begin to happen to those people because they got stolen the ark. So they decided to send it back, and they sent it back in a cart, and I won't go through the whole story. But ended up in someone's house. Some guy, he happened to live nearby where they needed to do something about keeping it somewhere until they found the right way to transport it. So this guy's house was nearby and they put it in his house. Well, guess what happened? Just because the ark was in his house, he began to prosper. God began to bless him. Now remember, in those days, people didn't have quote unquote jobs like we think today. He wasn't working for Intel or he wasn't writing software. He was probably living off the land, farming, had crops, cattle, things like that. Well, when God means it prosper is because probably all his animals began to have more babies and they were all healthy. They weren't dying off for some reason or another. The crops were coming out and they were fine. They were able to sell their crops and have very little loss or not at all. They were more abundant, instead of producing 50% yield, they produced 100% yield. That's why God was prospering this guy, just because his presence was with the ark and his presence was in his house. So guess what? Blessing. It was automatic. He didn't ask to bring, he didn't say, hey, could you bring it over here so I can? He just said, hey, we need to put the ark somewhere until we figured out the right way to transport it. And right now we don't want any more problems, so we're gonna put it in your house. And he said, well, I'm honored to have it here. And they left it there. And he was there for a while. And God blessed him. He had blessings. God's presence brings blessing. I mean, so when God comes in your heart, just for that reason, things are going to begin to change, because God is going to bless you because Jesus is there. And the more you allow him to come through you in his glory and his wisdom and his knowledge, the more you seek him, the glory of God begins to increase. The presence of God increases in your house and in your business and in wherever you go. God is going to be doing things. Things are going to happen. People are going to sense things. I mean, I had people that come into my business and tell me that they like coming to see me. And if I told you what I do for a living, you probably would know most people don't want to go see me. But some people say they enjoy it. I don't think it's me. I don't think it's what I do for a living. I think it's because I allow God to come and be here, and they are sensing God's presence. I think that's what it is. That's the only thing could be. And I would encourage you to push to have God's presence more and more in your life, in your house, in your school, because, like you say, well, my school, well, if you're constantly in touch with the Lord, if you're aware of him, if you are always talking to him, when Paul said, pray without ceasing, he wasn't talking about being on your knees on some place praying 24/7, because for one thing, you fall asleep and then you get hungry and you're gonna get up and go eat, so you will not be able to do that. And then you have to go work. The Bible says, he who doesn't work, don't let him not eat. So you have to get a job, or you have to go to school. So obviously that's not what he was talking. He's talking about always being aware of God's presence with you, because he's with you all the time. So you can talk to him all the time. All the time. And while you're working, while you're studying, he's there. Just talk to him. If you had a question on a test, ask God, what? I don't remember. Now, if you didn't study, he might say, well, too bad, you should have studied. But he's there. I mean, he's there. So you can talk to him all the time. And that's what he's talking about, praying without ceasing. Well, when you have that going on, and you're always in contact with the Lord, his presence is going to be going around with you. And as you go through different places, school, work, your delivery route, whatever, God is going to be there, and things are going to happen. And sometimes I think you might not even notice or realize something God is doing. But when you bring God along, when you bring his presence along, and the more you do it, he's going to do things, even maybe behind the scenes. And sometimes where you can see it. So I would encourage you to do that. Seek him, pray, read the Bible. You don't have to read it all the time, but if you read the Bible a little bit every day, you'll be surprised. So anyways, I didn't want to make a long video. I just wanted to do a short one, and I don't want to fall out of the habit, because I really feel like God wants me to do this. But you guys take care, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.